Okay, Beruchim Abayim. Welcome everyone to another Tuesday night class. We would like to thank the Balabayit, Balatabayit, Mr. and Mrs. Yashar, for a beautiful night. I was asked to speak about Shalom Bayit, marital harmony. It is a hard topic. It's hard to do. And it seems like over here the women care about it more than the men. Some of it's going to be an introduction till we get to the real nitty-gritty of when it comes down to financials or physically or in-laws or all the above. We'll have concepts and scenarios that we can work on. When I asked my wife if she wanted to come for this speech, she said, it's really too busy before Rosh Hashanah, I don't know if I could do it. I said, okay, you don't have to come, we're not forcing you. She says, what are you speaking about? I said, Shalom Bayit. Shalom Bayit? What do you know about Shalom Bayit? She's like, I'll come. I gotta hear this. It's very apropos that we're learning about Shalom Bayit during Elul. This could be a New Year's resolution, something really to work on. As we know, when there's marital harmony between the husband and the wife, that's when we have the Shekhinah. We have God in between us. To have Shalom Bayit is a work in progress. It doesn't make a difference how old you are. You could be 90 years old, you could be 20 years old, newlyweds. It's something that needs to be worked on and it needs to be strengthened day in and day out. Where do we see this the most? By Avraham Avinu. Everyone knows the story. Avraham Avinu had a brit milah. He was in front of his tent. God was talking to him. 3 angels that he thought were Arabs walked by. He says, please come in. They come in and they ask a very interesting question. Where is Sarah, your wife? Where's Sarah? And what does Abraham say? Hine ba'oil, she's in the tent. And Rashi says, why would he ask such a question? Why would they ask this question to Avraham Avinu? And he says, the chavev al ba'ala. The reason why the angels asked this question is because they wanted Sarah to be more endeared to her husband. They wanted Abraham to have more love for his wife. Now the simple question is, I don't understand. He's 99 years old. She's almost as old. Greatest people in the world, prophecy, everything. Does that really help? The little hineh ba'ol? The answer is it does. You could be as great as Avraham Avinu, as great as Sarah Imenu, and Shalom Bayit is still needed and it could still help and it could still strengthen. It's tantamount to nowadays when a woman asks another woman, where's your husband? He's learning. Wow. Then she thinks, wow, look at that, he's learning. He's doing the right thing. It makes her feel much more of him, much higher of him. We know how great Shalom Bayit is from the famous example of Ner Shabbat, Nerot Shabbat, and Nerot Chanukah. If you have money for one of them, candles for Shabbat and candles for Chanukah, what do? You buy the candles for Shabbat. Why? Shalom Bayit. And we see how great Shalom Bayit is, that the Torah alters its words for it. How so? The angel comes to Sarah and says, you're going to have a child. She says, I'm going to have a child. My husband's too old. What did the Torah do? It switched it. When Hashem came to Abraham, she said, Abraham, your wife said that she's too old. You see how amazing that is, that even the Torah would switch it for something as great as Shalom Bayit. To have a man and a woman keep their love and make it stronger. Now there's an interesting question on that also. We're going to speak about it later. But the truth is he was old. He was an old man. Why would he get offended? Why would he feel bad that she said, my husband is old? He was old. He should have looked at it as good. Maybe he was wise, he was smart. And the answer is, we're going to say it very short now. We'll speak about it in length a little later in the Shi'ud Be'ezat Hashem. Is that even when something is true, you don't always have to say it. You don't have to say things that are true. A lot of times you feel like, you know what, but it's true. She is clumsy. She's a ditz, right? He's not tardy. He always comes late. So let me say it. No, you still don't say it. Especially in front of people. And especially when the guy's going to find out. And make sure your husband, if you have to talk about it, make sure he never finds out what you're going to say. Now the Yerushalmi says, a famous Yerushalmi in Sotah, it brings down a case showing how important Shalom Bayit is. The Yerushalmi says that there was a woman who went to the class of Rabbi Meir. She heard a dirasha. The class went a little bit too long. She came home, food's not ready. He got angry. He said, where were you? She said, well, I was listening to the rabbi's speech. He was so angry at her, he says, you're not allowed to walk into this house. You can't have anything here unless you go back to that rabbi who made you come late and you spit at him in the eye. Right? Psycho husband. Yeah, we know a couple of those. Spit at him in the eye. She didn't know what to do. She goes back to the Shi'ud. Meanwhile, Rabbi Meir, who it's talking about, he had Ruach HaKodesh. He knew exactly what happened. So he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. He gets up by his speech. He's about to speak. And he says, I want to let everyone know that I have a certain eye ailment. I have an issue with my eye, and I need someone to spit in my eye. She's like, okay, this is it. I got my chance. I could get back into the house. And she gets up, and she's like, I could do it. And Rabbi Meir says, do you know the lachash? Lachash is a whisper. Do you know what to say while you're doing it? She says, no. So he says, okay, spit in my eye 7 times. It'll work without saying the lachash. And she does it. She spits into his eye 7 times. She goes back home. Her husband says, did you spit in the eye? Yes. Not 1 time, 7 times. Now the Talmidim of Rabbi Meir, they were so angry when they found out what happened. And they said, the student said, I don't understand. We could have took this guy, some roughhousing, we could have beaten him up, make him take back his wife. Why would you let her do that? And he said something amazing. He said that we know by Sotah, by a woman who we think she might be promiscuous, we make her drink from the Sotah waters, which is Hashem's name erased. If Hashem can erase his name for Shalom Bayit, they could spit in my eye for Shalom Bayit. As long as Shalom Bayit is up, it's the most important. That's how Rabbi Meir said it. Shalom Bayit always comes first. Where do we see this? Rabbi Nassim Tzvi Finkel, the Rosh Yeshiva of Mir, was giving a shi'ud in Tel Aviv to all his old students, and he's giving the shi'ud, and his wife walks over to him in the middle of the shi'ud, and she says, they have wives. So he says, oh, that means I'm going too long. I have to stop the shi'ud. One of his students said, Rabbi, we want to hear more. Tell us more. He said, I can't. The wives are waiting. They're hungry. So he said, no, our wives are okay. He said, first of all, I don't know if that's true. Second of all, my wife is hungry. So instead of making my wife wait, I'm going to go right now. I'm going to finish it, because even Torah gets pushed off for Shalom Bayit. And we paskin the halacha, or Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky writes the halacha. He has a very interesting question. He said, Chanukah menorah, you got to light the candles right away. Right away, right when it turns night, you light the candles. And Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky asked a question. He says, what if your wife's not home? She's going to be home 2 hours later. Do you wait for her, or do you light it now? So he said, you wait for her. Why? Because the whole reason is because of Shalom Bayit. We know that Hadlakat Nerot trumps Chanukah, the Chanukah candles. So here also, they said it's better not to do it on time and wait for her. Now there's a very famous Gemara in Sotah. I'm sure many have heard of this. The Gemara says, when Rish Lakish started learning the Gemara in Sotah, Amar Hachi, he said this, a person, A man only gets a woman according to his deeds. If he's a good guy, he gets a good G. A bad guy, he gets a bad girl. That's how it works. And he goes through the pasuk. So great, so hard it is to put two people together, a man and a woman. It's like splitting of the sea. And then the Gemara asks a question. Aini, is this so? He says, is this true that if you're a good guy, you get a good woman? He said, we know 40 days before conception, God announces already who's going to marry who. So how does it work now? Is it lefi ma'asav? Does it go by what you do, how good you are or how bad you are? Or does it go by God saying what it's going to be? Right? It's an oxymoron. It's a contradiction. So the Gemara answers, ha bezivug rishon, ha bezivug sheni. We have two zivugim. We have the first one and the second one. The first one, God says you're going to marry this woman. The second one is a different woman. That's how the Gemara tries to explain it. And Rashi says, like we said, that the worse he is, the worse girl he's going to get. Hashem's not going to give him the best girl if that's what was in Shemayim. He's going to give him something else. Now, it's very hard to understand this, because we know that we all have one zivug. We all have one husband. That's how it works. One husband, one wife. So how does this make sense? The Mikubalim explain it amazingly. The Mikubalim explain that we all have a body. We have a guf. And inside of our guf is a neshama. God took from under his throne of glory a neshama and he put it in a guf. But the Mekubalim say it's not a regular neshama, it's split. He takes half, he puts it in this guf, and half in this guf. And that's the husband and the wife. And then when they come back together, when they meet each other, right? A lot of times you meet someone and you're like, you know what, I know this person from somewhere. It's funny, actually. Last month, someone comes to me in Maple Ridge, a woman, she says, I want to tell you how my daughter and my son-in-law got married. I said, okay. I never met her before. I don't know why she's telling me these stories. She said he was on the plane coming from Tel Aviv to Florida, and he sees a girl, and he says, I'm going to marry this girl. And she said 3 weeks later they got married. And it was like very stalker type. She said, I didn't like it at all. But you know what? It makes sense. She didn't know this Gemara, that you know the person already because you're supposed to marry that person. Your neshama is attracted to this person. You met them already. And the Mekubalim explained, this is zivug rishon, zivug sheni. Your first zivug was when you were up in Shamayim. You were one neshama. Then God had to take you, pull you apart, and now your zivug sheni is here. And this is lefi ma'asav. This is how you act. You want to keep this marriage? Make sure you work on it. Make sure you fight for it. Right? Nowadays, people don't fight for marriages. It's so easy to get divorced. Right? I see these signs. $300 for like a divorce. Wife doesn't need to be there. I don't know what that means. The wife doesn't need to be there. And they're all over. It's the craziest thing in the world. But it's the norm now. It happens to be now that we're in Elul. I'll tell you something. It just hit my head. We say on Rosh Hashanah, we should be like Tiyeh lerosh velo lezanav. We should be like the head and not like the tail. Right? So the rabbis ask a question. If you're the head, you're not the tail. If you're the tail, you're not the head. What does that mean? You should be like the head and not the tail. The answer is that this is talking about Hollywood stars. Right? People look at Hollywood stars and they're the head. You know, they're famous, they have everything they want, but they're trash. They're the zanav also, and they get divorced, and they commit suicide, and they do drugs, they do everything bad. That's why we say, no, we don't want either of them. Don't give me the good, give me only the good. Right? We think when we think about love. I remember I was once talking to someone who was a chassan rabbi. He used to talk to chatanim before they got married, and he used to tell them, well, when you watch a movie, like that's how it is, and that's not how it is. It's not how it is. Whatever movie you watch is not the ones that I live in every day. Right? That's Hollywood stars. This is not the way we live. Now going back, I heard this actually from Rabbi Mansour. He asked an amazing question. He says, why does it say zivug zivugim? It should say zivug yachidim. He doesn't take two people. He doesn't take pairs and put them together. He takes yachidim. So he says, that's exactly the reason why the Mekubalim say this. That you're actually two neshamot. You're one neshama that split into two. You come back together. And that's the person you're supposed to marry. Lefi ma'asav. And that's the reason why, he explained to me, it says a very interesting thing. It says, so hard is zivugim, is pairing a man and a woman together. It's like Kiryat Amsuf. It's like the splitting of the Red Sea. That's not a good analogy. It shouldn't be breaking apart. You should say going in. It should be going in together. Right? Makes sense? You shouldn't say, it's so hard, it's like taking two things and breaking them apart. That's not good. You're trying to bring two things together. He said, no, that's exactly pshat. He said, you were one, and he took you apart. It's so hard to take you apart and then for you to get back together, because you were one neshama that had to be broken apart. As we explained, the velocity of a relationship, it causes waves even by something minor. Something so small, we brought this up a few times regarding the toothpaste cap that you left under, or the sock that you didn't throw in. The truth is, I shouldn't say this now, it's being recorded and my mother's going to watch it. But I remember after our last class, and I said about the socks, an hour later my wife texts me, she shows me my socks, they're on the chair. She says, no practicing what you preach, huh? But it slips your mind. It slips your mind. And it's hard, and that's why we have to know not to get involved in those little things. Right? When you ask a couple when they first got married, how happy were you? We were the happiest people in the world. Would that bother you? Would it bother you that the socks were there, that someone left a cup on the table that shouldn't be there? No, it would never bother me. All of a sudden, a year later, it's the worst thing in the world. It's like, chatati aviti pashati, I can't believe it, the cup's on the table. What happened? It's a year later. It's a year later. And all whatever you had, it left, right? God gives us a very interesting thing. He makes something called ta'ava. He makes something called lust and infatuation. Right? Because if not, then nobody would ever get married. It just doesn't make sense. So you get infatuated and lust, and then you meet a woman, and you want to marry her. It happens to be, the studies show regarding kindergarteners. When you have little kids, boys and girls are the best of friends, always. Little boys and little girls, when they're in kindergarten, they're the best of friends. Then they start to change. 5, 6, 7, and they go their separate ways. And then when puberty hits at 13, 14, that's when it comes back again. And that's what God does. Because really, we have we're after two different things, right? They like the cars and then she likes the dolls. So when they're 5, 6, 7, it just doesn't work anymore. Then it comes back. And that's because God created this thing called desire. Now the Midrash Rabbah says, there's a Midrash that says, Amar Rabbi Berechia. Excuse me, sorry. Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon Patach. Elohim Moshiv Yachitim Baita. Matrona Sha'ala. There was a woman called Matrona. I believe she was a queen or a princess. She asked a question. She goes to the Rabbi Yossi bar Chalafta, and she says, I have a question for you. God created the world in 6 days. We all know that. What does he do after that? So he says, God deals with zivugim, shiduchim, nasib, bashert. He deals with taking couples and putting them together. And she says, that's the craziest thing in the world. It's a waste of time. I could do that myself. She takes 100 servants, 100 maidservants. She puts them together. And she says, you see, I could be God. The next day, they come back in. The Midrash says that one guy lost an eye. One woman had a broken leg. And she's like, look at her, what happened? This woman that you gave me, she's a terror. And this guy, he beat me last night. And she said, you know what? God, this is God. God is the greatest God in the world. If he can do this, I didn't realize how hard it was. But he says, he says, but there are times when you have to put two people together that it wouldn't work. That's when it goes by ma'asim. When you really are one neshama, but he's in this status and she's in this status, it just doesn't go. So there could be crying as opposed to shirot. B'chi b'shir. And that's how the Midrash ends. Now, excuse me. Now, many couples have a thought in their mind, at least one time or another in their life, that this person is not for me. whatever it was a mistake. I was crazy. I was young. What happened? You used to love him. I fell out of love. I never loved him. He had money. Whatever the reason is. There's always a reason. And they fall out of it. This is coming to tell you that everyone gets exactly what they're supposed to get. God has a plan. Mizaveg zivugim. The bashet, the nasib that you walk down the aisle with, that is the one that you're supposed to get. There's no such thing as, maybe I made a mistake. No, you didn't make a mistake. It's not how it works in life. Right? We have a higher power, a higher calling. We have God telling us exactly what's going to be and how it's going to work. Now, where do we see this the most? Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov took the berachot from Esav. He stole it. Now, you find something very interesting. You look at the berachot, the Hikra Lev asks, he says, you look at the berachot, they were never for Yaakov. They're about money, they're about mishmanei ha'aretz, they're about cattle. Why would Yaakov Avinu need such a beracha? It should have went to Esav. And he explains like this. He said, really, Esav was supposed to get that beracha. Because Yitzchak Avinu knew that Esav was not a learner. He's not going to sit in Kolel all day. He's a regular guy. So he said that since he's such a good person, right, because he tricked him, that I'm going to make him into Yisachar Zevulun. Now, for those who don't know what Yisachar Zevulun is, Yisachar is the one who learns, Zevulun is the one that works, and they split it 50-50. He gets half the mitzvot, he gets half the money. So he said, I want Esav to be the guy who works, I want Yaakov to be the guy who learns, and then they're going to split it. And Esav thought he got him there. Why? The famous midrash that says that he used to go over to Yitzchak Avinu and he would say, how do I give ma'aseh? How do I tithe? How do I give charity on salt? And Yitzchak Avinu knew there was no such thing. We don't give charity on salt. So he was doing it to say that I want to do it so much. I want to be this Zevulun. I want to work this out. So what did Rivka do? Rivka said, no. This is not going to happen. I could see right through you. And I'm going to make sure Yaakov gets it because he needs it just as much as you. Because to learn, you need to have money also. Now, Rivka was brought up in a family of cheats, of swindlers. Betuel was a cheat. Navan was a swindler. Her whole city was a bunch of crazies. And they asked a question, I don't understand. Why would Rivka have to be coming from such a place? Why couldn't God make her come from a nice lineage, a good place, a place where you could be proud of? Why from these terrible people? And they explain, the reason why is because she had to be the one to see through Esav. If she wasn't married, if she didn't have a brother that was a swindler, a father that was a cheat, she would have done everything she had to do. She would have said, you know what, maybe he's really a good guy. So she said, no. God said, I'm going to make sure that you come from this family so that you know exactly what's going to happen and that you can go and give it to Yaakov. So we see Hashem makes sure that exactly what you need to get, exactly what you need to fulfill your obligation, your mission on this world, that's what you're going to have. And it's very hard. We're all put on this world. We have a mission. We have something that we need to do. We have to figure exactly what we need to do and how we need to do it. And it has to be with our wives. It has to be with our spouses. Now, I said this story once before, but there were no men there. So I'll say it again. Most of the times, as we've spoken about, these things don't matter. They're usually small things, but the bigger things we'll speak about with Hashem later if we have time. But most of the things are very, very small. There is a story that I said before Tisha B'Av. It is about a woman who was not tardy. She was not very clean. And it used to bother her husband to no end. He hated it. He used to go crazy for it. But whenever he would say something, she would say, Zeh lo hashuv. It's not important. I'm not going to deal with it right now. And he would say, okay, maybe she's right, Zeh lo hashuv. Now this was in the times of the bungalow colonies and collect calls. Long time ago, we used to have collect calls where something was important. You called up your wife, you called up the husband. They used to ask you, are you right? You guys remember that? I was in North Miami Beach, and there was a payphone there, and I showed my son, and I said, you see what that is? That's a gumball machine. He's like, really? Because right, for us, we used to stick our finger in to try to get the quarter. Hopefully something was there. Now they think it's a gumball machine. So now what happened? She gets a call from him. He gets a call from her that I need the checkbook. Please, when the next time you come up to the mountains, he used to be there Monday to Thursday in New York. He used to come up to the bungalow, the Catskills, for the weekends, like they still do now. The next time you come, bring me my checkbook. He said, well, you know what? If you're calling me collect call, it's got to be super important. He takes the checkbook, he puts it in a bag, it's all ready to go. He brings it up the next day. Next day he goes, he says, I know you called me, it was important, here it is. She takes it and she puts it on the crib. She puts it on the crib. He's wondering, I don't know why she did that. You said it was important, it's something you should have used right away. But I'm going to leave it. I'm here for a couple of days. It's not worth it to fight, to even ask her. I'm just going to let it go. And he goes back home. The week passes. He comes back again. Same exact spot, the checkbook in the bag. And now he's thinking, you know what? This is really not right. She always does this to me. She makes me do something, and then she doesn't use it. And then I look like the bad guy if I never do it in the first place. But he says, you know what? I'm here for 3 days, Friday to Sunday. I'm going to let it go. In the middle of the next week, he gets a call from the hospital that his wife is in labor and there's complications. He rushes as fast as he can, goes through every light he could. When he gets there, it was too late. She died. She passed on. He sat there, he cried. He goes back home and he sees the checkbook in the bag in the same spot. He takes it and he writes 2 checks. The first one to the Havra Kadisha, the second one to the funeral home. He picks up the bag and he writes on the bag, Zelo Hashuv. A lot of times you think things are really important, but really, are they important? Do they matter? This is something that matters. Losing a spouse. Is it worth it to go through such pain? Whether divorces, whether sicknesses, all these things, and then we're worried about the toothpaste cap. We're worried about these little stupid things. My shoes aren't exactly the right way. It's no hashuv. There's a story of the Maharil Diskin, famous story of the Maharil Diskin, that he once got a cup of tea from his wife, and instead of putting 3 spoonfuls of sugar, she put 3 spoonfuls of salt. And he takes it right away, he tasted it, he saw what was in there, and he went through the whole thing. He said, thank you very much, it was great. And everyone says how amazing that story is. There's a rabbi in Israel, Rabbi Adis. Rabbi Adis said, come on, it can't be that crazy. He takes a cup of tea, he puts in 1 spoon of salt, and he says it was undrinkable. Couldn't do it. It was too much. He said, now I understand. He said, when the rabbis do things, they do things for a reason. Why didn't he just tell his wife, you know, honey, it's a mistake, it's a common mistake. You put salt instead of sugar. You know, it wasn't good, I don't want to drink it, or just let her know. Because the rabbis are so careful, how we should also be so careful in how their wife would feel. Even though it was a mistake, even though it was something so small, even though it was something that you could just get another cup of tea, but you don't want to hurt the person. You don't want to hurt the person even if it's so small, even though she might laugh about it, but inside, there's something there. And they're so careful not to even get involved in those little circumstances. Now, there's a famous rule that men don't know and women do know, is that many times, and I do this with my wife as well, whenever she wants to tell me something, I ask, do you want me to answer you or you just want to talk? And she'll tell me, no, now I just want to vent to you. Okay, so vent. Right? Because men, we're brought up to always try to fix things, to try to help, to try to figure it out. And then when the woman comes and says a story about X, Y, and Z that happens, and they try to help it out, and she doesn't care. No, you never listen to me. I don't like you. I never liked you. Go ahead. Right? But really, we're really good people. And we walk out of the room, we're like, Hajjaba. I want to go learn now. Right? Always at those times, I got to go learn. Because they just don't want to be in the house anymore. That's because women have a certain personality that they many of the times they don't want to be answered. They just want you to listen. Now, Rabbi Master actually says so over a story. He says there were 2 people that came into his house. They had a problem, a marriage issue. A man and a woman are sitting by the table, And he says, okay, what happened? Well, she says, you know what? He doesn't listen to me. It bothers me. I don't know what to do with this guy anymore. He says, Rabbi, I'm the nicest guy in the world. I did nothing wrong, right? That's what we all say. I'm the nicest guy in the world. He says, okay, tell me the story. Okay. He says, she called me up. I was in work. I'm very busy. I have a very big company. And she called me up and she asked me a question. Then she takes over. She says, I want to tell the story. I called him up and I had a question. I wanted to know which glasses I should buy. The 12-inch or the 15-inch? Right, the big nice wine glasses. So he said, honey, whichever one you want. And she asked him again. She said, which glasses should I buy? So he said, the 12-inch or the 15-inch, they're both fine with me. If you like it, get it. And he's looking at the rabbi. He's saying, you see, I did nothing wrong. What did I do wrong? So then he says, you know what? Tell him what happened after. And the wife says, and then I asked again. And he said, buy both of them. I'll buy you the company, whatever you want. Buy the 12-inch, buy the 15-inch, I don't care. Just, I'm in the middle of work now, whatever you want. And now she's coming. You see, I'm a good guy. Why is she coming? She's all angry at me. And he says over, he said, you know what? You're a very smart man. You have a big company, but you don't understand how a woman works. So you're not that smart. She didn't care which glasses. She didn't care about your opinion. She's going to buy the other one anyways. Whichever one you say, she's going to buy the other one. That's just how it works. She just wanted to talk to you. She wanted you to give up some of your time throughout the day to talk to her, to listen to what she has to say. Right? Parenthetically, it's not in my notes, but men shouldn't be getting involved in those things anyways. Men should not be getting involved. How the couch looks or how the chairs, a lot of times the men say, you know what, I like the pink or I like the yellow. Nobody cares what you guys like. The woman, you're in charge of the religious aspect, the women are in charge of the other aspect, and they shouldn't clash, right? You don't go into the kitchen. You don't tell her how to make food. She does it the way she wants to do it, and this is brought down, and I believe the Gemara in Bava Metzia also says it, that the women are in charge of the household affairs, and the men shouldn't be getting involved whatsoever. So all these little things, the listening to how they speak, not answering. It's always the little things that matter. My wife was telling me yesterday that having small things throughout the year could be as big as a big thing. 20 small things, just showing that you care, that you're thinking about the person, right? If the guy likes a chocolate, put a chocolate on his pillow. If the woman likes a massage, get her a gift card. Throughout the year, you do these little things, and that's what makes the difference, because it shows that the marriage is moving forward, because there's always something to work on and to make better. As we know, ahava, the numerical value ahava, gematria is 13. Aleph, he, bet. It's the same numerical value as ehad, 1. When you love a person, it's 1. You're 1. You're combined. Now if you take the ahava of her, the ahava of him, it's 26. That's when you have Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, 26. And that's when God is in the middle. Because it only comes with love, right? The famous thing that we all know, that ahava, the middle 2 letters ahav, is by giving. When you give to someone, you love them more. The more you give, the more you love. When you first get married, that's not love. Right? It's called, I believe they call it fish love. Right? When someone says, I love fish. No, you don't. If you loved fish, you would leave it in the water. You love yourself, and you like eating fish. The same thing over here. When you meet the girl, you say, I love this woman. I love her. She's the best thing ever. I love her. You don't love her. You're selfish. And you love yourself, and you know that she can bring you to wherever you have to go, but really you don't love the person. You're infatuated with the person. You desire the person. You like the person. You don't love. Right? Because if you really love the woman, you would get her a good guy. Instead, you want to take her all for yourself. Now, the Arizal brings down the first question that God is going to ask when a man goes up to heaven, and maybe possibly a woman as well, is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Did you love your friend like you loved yourself? And he says it's not even talking about a friend. That's very good. Neighbors are good. You should love them. You should love friends. You should love acquaintances. But really, it's about the wife, right? With this mitzvah, we always take it and we put it towards a different person we never met, the guy in shul. What about the wife? V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. V'halachta b'derachai. You should be like God. That means you give your wife whatever you have. You love your wife as much as you, right? If you have one pillow, you give it to your wife. And if she has one pillow, she should give it back to you. Rosh Zalman Auerbach, when his wife passed away, he got up to give his hesped, to give his eulogy, to give his speech. And he says, I want to let everyone know there's a minhag. We're always supposed to ask forgiveness. A man to a wife, a son to a father. He said, I'm not asking mechila, I'm not asking for forgiveness because I have never done something wrong to her. He said, I've never hurt her feelings. He was so cognizant, he was so understanding that he knew that I can't hurt this person. She is part of me. She's my neshama. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. And he got up and he said that I never hurt her. Right? This is something that a gadol could do, something that a great man. It brings to mind, I once drove Shmuel Kamenetsky from Lakewood to Philadelphia, and I had a question. I said, Rabbi, he's the gadol adorner of Shmuel Kamenetsky. I said, Rabbi, did you ever do something in your life that you couldn't take back? That you wish you could have changed and you couldn't? And I wanted him to say, yeah, of course, but you know what? That's what God wanted. And he turns to me and he says, no. I said, in your whole life you never did something? He said, never. He said, everything I have done, I thought before I did it. Every single second is a test. Everything I do, I make sure that it's all according to plan. I don't regret anything. Everything's perfect. And that's what Rosh Zalman said. I don't have to ask Mechila because everything I did to my wife, everything I said, was always proportionate. It was always perfect. But that's loving your wife as yourself. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, he went home from a wedding. He was going home. He goes to one of the boys. He says, can you drive me and my wife home? Of course. Rosh Hashiva, whatever you need. He said, 1 second, let me go to your car first. And he goes to his car, and he says, can I sit in the back seat? He said, Rabbi, no, you're going to sit in the front. He's like, no, I just want to see how it feels. Because if it doesn't feel good, I don't want my wife to sit there. I want to make sure it's comfortable for my wife. Right? We're giving very high standards, but that's how it should be. And the same thing should be the opposite way. Rav Ayer Levine, he goes into the hospital. His wife hurt her leg. And he comes in and he says, doctor, our leg is hurting. He felt her pain so much, he said, our leg is hurting. She's part of me. Another story with Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky is by his second marriage. He had a minhag, he did not eat dairy on Fridays. And Shavuot fell out on a Friday, and he didn't know what to do. Should I eat dairy? Should I not eat dairy? He knew that was the minhag. His wife already made it. So he said, instead of me going and telling her, listen, I really don't eat it, which she probably won't care anyways, I'm going to be matir neder. He brings 3 guys, and he says, I want you to take off my promise so I could eat dairy. And then after, when he finished eating, he said, by the way, I have a custom not to eat dairy just for next time. But right now it was good, just because he didn't want to hurt her feelings. Right? As we say, words matter. The way you say something. I said this as well the other day, and I'm going to reiterate and say it again, that what people say matters. When you say something, it takes a toll. Right? To repent, to do teshuvah on hurting someone's feelings, it's not simple. The Rambam says if you hurt somebody, ask forgiveness. But sometimes it lingers, sometimes it lasts. Even when the person says, yes, I'm mochel you, I forgive you. There was a couple who had a shaky marriage. He was emotionally abusive to her. He used to say things that shouldn't be said. He used to hurt her feelings. And she would go to therapy for it. She would try to seek help. And the therapist said, after a prolonged amount of time, it's over. It's done. You got to stop this now. It's not good for your health. And she says, but I have kids. And I know I still love him. He could change. Give me a different way out. Give me give me some advice how to change this. And he says, okay, there's one way. He said, it's a stress relief. You take a plank of wood, you get a box of nails, and every time he says something hurtful to you, you take a nail and you hit it in. And that's what she did. Every time she would come in the house, do I look good today? No, you don't. She would go upstairs, she would take a nail, hit it in. And then, you do that also? And then, was the food good? The truth is my mom makes it better. That's the worst. Once you say my mom makes it better, then they're all over you. Okay, she would go up. She would say, okay. She would take it and hit it in. Until after a while, he goes up and he says, what is all that noise every time? I always hear this banging. He goes up and he sees all these nails in the wood. What is this? She said, I'll tell you the truth. My therapist said that this will help me. What's it for? Every time you say something hurtful to me, I bang something in. He was so hurt by it. He said, I'm going to change. I'm going to be a different person. And every time I say something good, you take out a nail. And then the next time when she said, do I look good? You look like a supermodel. You look like the most beautiful one. Is the food. The food is perfectly cooked and salted. And everything was so, and it was amazing. And it changed their marriage. She was much happier. And then one day, she comes down with the plank of wood. No more nails. He says, you see, I told you I could do it. Right? You thought I couldn't do it? I could be a good guy also. She said, you're right, there's no nails, but look at all the holes. It still hurts. Because words matter. Imagine telling a spouse how you're stupid. I don't know why I married you. And it happens. People say these things that are very, very hurtful. And especially by women, they remember it always. They always remember that they said that. Even after a week, men forget very quickly. Now, men, after a couple of days, they're already over it. The women, it can be years that they still remember. He called me stupid. He says, I don't know why I married you. Right? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will harm much more because it lingers. Which brings us to a topic of a lot of times men and women, they, for some reason, enjoy making fun of each other. Especially in public. They make fun of each other. Oh, you're such a this. Oh, you cook like that. You're clumsy. You don't know how to boil an egg. Whatever it is. They say things and it's in front of people and they laugh about it. But then when they get home, I know from experience, the man always looks at the wife and says, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you said that in front of people. Or she would say it to him. It's not a joke. Maybe when we're in our own house, you want to say something, maybe it won't hurt, but you say it in front of people, it always hurts. Right? It should be the exact opposite. You should lie for it. When they're talking about who makes the best kibbeh, who makes the best kugel, sushi, you should say, even though your wife does not make it, and your husband cannot sing a song, he can't keep on tune for a second, my wife makes the best kugel and the best kibbeh I've ever had in my life. Even though you're starting to gag thinking about it. But that's what you do, because she says, that's the nicest thing he ever said. And the same thing the other way. My husband, he sounds like Chabut, he sounds like Medat Tasa when he sings Imish Kachech. But really, it sounds like a cow being choked, right? But that's what you say, and then people say, really? Wow, that's so nice. And then you look up and you feel good, and then she's saying nice things about me. Now, how much more time do we have? Now, there are 5 leading causes of, I'll look at you, Tommy. There are 5 leading causes of fights. Why people get into disagreements and arguments. Number 1 is time. Not having time with each other. Number 2 is religion. Number 3 are in-laws / parents. Okay. Number 4 is physically. 5 is financially. These are the 5 leading causes why people get into fights. Now, before we get involved in these 5 things, it's very important to know that the people who get hurt from this the most, from these fights, are the kids. We say in Tehillim, Kachitzim biyad neurim. David HaMelech is saying that children are like bows. The closer you keep it to your heart, the straighter it'll be. But if you don't keep it, if the marriage is not good and there's fighting and they don't see the love after, then the kids go astray. They see what happens, and then you're actually pushing them away. There's a study by Dr. David Pelkowitz that talks about domestic abuse. He did a study for 3 years, going with police and organizations, speaking to kids. And not one kid said that they didn't know about the parents fighting, even if they tried to hide it. Every kid knew that the parents were fighting. And they were more likely to be involved in those relationships when they got older. So what kind of person do you want your son or daughter to marry? They say, from this same statistic, that 10% of boys are more likely to lead a marriage like how they had, how they saw. And girls are more likely to stay in a relationship that they saw their parents in, which was a detrimental relationship. So forget about you guys for a second. The kids get hurt the most from it. The kids get pain. The kids see it, and then they have their bad marriages. They have to also go to Shalom Bayit classes and things like that. Now, the first thing is time. Having private time together is very, very important. Going out, right? I made a joke last time, I'll say it again, but really it's not so funny, that me and my wife go out 2 times a week. I go out Monday and Wednesday, she goes out Tuesday and Thursday. Right? That's how you build a good marriage. But seriously, to go out once a week, and if you can't go out, you have no babysitter, you stay home, you play a game, you just sit down, you talk. You have to have time. If there's no time, then they drift apart. And that's when the woman always says, because they like saying, you know what, you don't know me anymore. Right? They always like using that thing, you don't know me. And he says, no, I know you. She says, what's my favorite color? Which ice cream do I like? Buy me the ice cream I like. The guy comes back with 50 ice creams. I'll give you everything. You want the color? I'll give you a rainbow. Whatever you need. I don't have to know exactly the exact one. Whatever it is, I'll tell you. I'll give it to you. But it's all about time. Giving time from a man to a wife to a man. The next thing is religion. Now, a lot of times, a man is more religious than a woman is more religious than a man, or regarding yeshivot, or schools, or what to do, or how to learn, or when to pray, or things like that. Now, the first thing you should know is that they have another survey that is a Reuters survey I wrote down, that 71% of Americans believe that spiritual beliefs help their marriage. That when you have something to hold on to, something to fight for, something that's guiding you, it'll actually help your marriage because it'll give it more stability. But what if husband and wife are on different religious platforms? What if they don't have the same needs? He feels like she's going too fast. She feels like he's going too fast. What do they do in that case? So there was a man that went to Rav Shmuel Auerbach, a man from Eretz Yisrael. He went to Rav Shmuel Auerbach, and he tells Rav Shmuel Auerbach, I got married 2 weeks ago, and she's not the one for me. She says that she wants to go to the mall, she wants to go to family, and I just want to sit down and learn Torah. And before it gets really crazy, I want to get a divorce. Tell me what to do. Rav Shmuel Auerbach says, this is too big for me. This is a Chazon Ish's question. Let's go to the Chazon Ish. They go to the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish is listening to it, and it says that his hands were on his cheeks, and he starts to smile. And then he's grinning bigger, and he's going through the whole thing, but what should I do? And then all of a sudden he's laughing. And he said, I don't know what's bothering you. If you want her to change, then you have to be a different person. A woman knows a man more than anyone else. He said there's 2 people that know a man, God and his wife. So if you're a person that doesn't miss shachrit, doesn't miss praying, then of course she's going to be all for it. You don't miss learning. But if you sees you're chilling out a little bit, then okay, come to my family. What's the difference? Go to the mall with me. The Arizal brings down that the wife is a mirror of her husband. Any deficiency he sees in her is actually his own deficiency. A lot of times he says, you know what, you do this, X, Y, and Z. It's really because it comes from you, because she is your other half. She's your neshama. She is you. That's how we explain also what we said before, the fima asav. It goes according to your deeds. If your deeds are good, if your deeds are strong, then she's going to be in the same way. Right? She's a ezer kenegdo. She helps you. She's supposed to be the opposite, helping you in whatever you do. But if it's something that you lack in, and you're complaining about it, that's the worst. If you have an issue with something, right, you always keep your cup on the table. And then you see her do it and you get angry about it, that's the worst. Because you have to understand your own flaws. You have to get involved in your spouse's shoes to see what they're up to, how they feel. Because nobody sees their own flaws. I remember when I was in Eshat Torah in Israel, they said a story of the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is the head of the Buddha Batich, whatever it's called. And a mother goes with her son to the Dalai Lama and says, I want you to tell my son not to eat sugar anymore. Sugar's no good for him. He's a diabetic, no more sugar. And the Dalai Lama says, come back in 2 weeks. She says, okay. She came back in 2 weeks. He looks at the kid. He says, you better not eat sugar anymore. It's no good for you. He says, I won't eat sugar anymore. I'm sorry. And then the mother looks at him and says, why didn't you say this 2 weeks ago? We have to wait 2 weeks. He said, I'll tell you why. Because 2 weeks ago, I was also eating sugar. And for me to say something, I gotta practice what I preach. I can't just go and do it, right? Sometimes we could learn from the goyim in certain circumstances. But you have to practice. You can't go and get angry about something when you have the same flaw. Now, the next thing we get involved in is in-laws and parents. Now, this is a big issue that applies to everyone. That parents many times are at fault that they get involved. But it's issues like, why do we go to your parents? Why don't we go to my parents? Why do you name after your side? You should name after my side. Why do your parents get involved? Now, the first thing to know is, especially for a woman, is that every little thing that happens in a person's life, you don't tell your mom or your father. If you get in a fight, you don't go and say, well, my husband did X, Y, and Z, because then it just makes him look in a bad light and it makes things much, much worse. I've been in cases where the woman would go to the mother and then she would try to push for the divorce. Like, you're not treating my daughter nicely. So they should work these things out between themselves. They should not get involved or tell the mother or the father about what's happening unless it's a real serious situation. There's a question that a rabbi gets very often. Right? And the guys usually come and they have the thumb and they say, if my wife tells me to do something and my father tells me to do something, who do I listen to? You know that question? The other way, we know the woman has to listen to the husband over the parents. What if it's the opposite way? The father says something and the wife says something. Now, I say this countless times whenever someone asks me this question, is that the wife comes first, comes before the father, comes before the parents, because she is you. She's your neshama. She's part of you. It's doing it to yourself. So when you have something that needs to be done and your wife says do it like X and do it Y, the woman always comes first. Right? The women already know that because they know once they get married, they switch their name, they're under a different power. But the men don't understand that the woman always has to come first before. Now, regarding physically, we're not going to speak about it in depth, but it's a very, very important thing physically. The halacha brings down many times, actually, in Nidan and other places, Hilchot Ketuvot, that there's an obligation to be with your wife physically. And there are times when the wife can say, you can't go on this business trip. You're not allowed to do X, Y, and Z. You're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to do, because it's halachically asur. Right? Just like you can't do, you got to keep Shabbat. You have to make sure to keep all these things also. The Gemara says the story of Rav Chiya. Rav Chiya had a wife that would always aggravate him. She wasn't the best wife, but he used to come home and put things in like a little napkin and give it to her. And one rabbi said to him, why do you always do this? She doesn't like you. She always messes with you. Forget about the G. Go get a new one. So he said, it's enough for us that our wives raise our children and save us from sin. That's the most important thing. It's very important, right? And women have to understand also that there's something called pat besado. The Gemara brings down that it's called this bread in the basket. If the woman is not getting involved in that physical aspect, then the man doesn't have bread in the basket, and then who knows what can happen, a lot worse things. So it goes both ways. Now the next thing is, and we'll conclude with this for this half. Maybe we'll make it into a double class for next time. The next thing is financially. Financially is a very, very big issue where men and women mostly get into fights over money matters. Why can't I have what they have? Why don't I get this? Why don't I get that? In our generation that we live in, where everything's instant gratification, it's hard for us to think about what's important. The most important thing to do is not to compare. We don't compare. We don't post things that don't need to be posted. We're modest. A friend of mine from Lakewood told me that he was in a restaurant and he saw two people that he knew, a man and a woman. They were sitting eating in a fancy restaurant together, and they got in a huge fight. The whole restaurant saw, and they were screaming at each other. He gets up, he leaves. 5 minutes later, she gets up and she leaves all embarrassed. He said 2 minutes after that, he got a post of the meal that they were having, smiling. Right? You think everything's all good in the post. Really, the guy was right there. They got into the biggest fight in the world. But no, she posted it and she saw the food and the thing. And you think, you know what? Everyone's having fun besides for me. No, they're not. They're not having fun. And it's not all real. People shouldn't know exactly what you're doing. Now, it's hard to talk about finances because it gets involved in the whole aspect of emunah, of faith in God. God gives a person exactly what the person needs. Not any more, not any less. Right? If you want to try really hard this year, Rosh Hashanah, it says, Kol Kesef Ketuvino, all the money is from one Rosh Hashanah to the next, so you should pray very hard for money. But it's God gives you exactly what you need and when you need it. Even though it seems like it's very hard, but it is an aspect of faith. And we don't understand it always. I got a call 2 months ago from someone in Deal, New Jersey, a very wealthy person, who told me, Rabbi, I have a big issue. He said, in 2 days, I can be bankrupt. I said, listen, I know your story. I know what you own. You have a business with $50 million. He said, I owe so much money that if one bank asks me for money, I'm out. I'll have nothing. He says, what do I do? So now, I don't know what to tell the person. Right? I'm not some mikubal. I can't tell him, well, really, you were supposed to lose it in an accident. I can't do any of those stuff. So I told him a mashal. I said, there's a story. There was a man who was the biggest Marlins fan. He was actually told him Jets, actually. He was from Jersey. The biggest Jets fan in the world. He loved the Jets so much, he never missed a game. Whenever they were playing, he was right there with his popcorn and his thing and his big, the finger thing. He was doing the whole gas. And lo alenu, again, hatati aviti, his brother's wedding was on the day of the Super Bowl. Now he didn't know what to do. He had to think, okay, do I watch the game? Or my mom's going to kill me. I got to go to the wedding. So he says, okay, listen, I'm going to TiVo it. I'm going to make sure it's recorded. I'm going to come after. If anyone tries to tell me what's happening in this game, I'm going to shut them down right away. He gets to the wedding, right? And the guy has the earbuds in. You know what just happened? I don't want to hear it. He dances a little bit. He gets involved in the pictures. Someone says, oh my gosh, you missed the craziest. Get out of here. He's walking out of the wedding. He said, I made it. I did it. I'm going to go home. I'm going to watch it. He walks out. He says, crazy game. Jets won. He says, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your family. But what do? You're a crazy fan. You got to watch the game. He goes home. He watches the game. He gets everything ready. But every time, I'm telling this person, every time there was a fumble or the other team got a touchdown, instead of crying, instead of getting angry, he laughed. Because he knew the outcome. I knew what was going to happen. They were going to win. So nothing mattered anymore. I said the same thing over here. We don't know why God does things. We don't know why we can just hope, we can pray. But God doesn't, when He's your ref, when He's your ump, you know that you're on the winning team. And whatever He does is for the best. So how can you be angry about it? I said, maybe you're going to get a different job that's going to pay you double. Maybe you're, Baruch Hashem, he's still in business. But maybe, who knows what can happen? He's like, you really helped me. He said it happens to be the day before he went to Cham Yitzchak Yosef in Israel, got a beracha for parnasa. So he's like, I don't know why this is happening. He's like, but now it really changed. Now I'm looking at it in a different light. That we don't know why or how things happen, but finances come from God. The key for parnasa, it says the maftech shel parnasa in Ta'anit Bet Amud Bet, it comes from God. He doesn't give it to anyone. He gives you what you need, what you want. Now sometimes it goes the other way. It works the opposite way. That someone has too much money. Or his emunah gets clouded in the opposite effect. How so? There is a person named Charlie from Chicago. Charlie from Chicago, he prayed in an Orthodox shul, but he never did anything Jewish, anything religious. After many years, the rabbi comes to him, Charlie, you got to do something already. It's too much. He said, how about you keep something? Keep something small. He says, you know what? I want to keep kosher. I'm going to keep kosher. And Charlie said, but I'm starting tomorrow. I can't do it today. I got to go. There's a place in Chicago called Super Dog. It's the best hot dogs in the world. I need a Super Dog, my last one. The rabbi says, okay, I'll give it to you. Get your last one. Then we're kosher for life. He's like, I got it. I'm kosher for life. He goes into this place, Super Dog, and he says that he put on the mustard and the ketchup and the relish and the sauerkraut. He's got the whole thing. He's about to bite into this Super Dog. And a guy sits right across from him. A guy, distinguished looking person wearing a suit. And he says, it looks like you want to eat that really bad. He said, oh gosh, I do. And he's about to bite into it again. He says, what's your name? He said, I'm Charlie. He said, do you like these things? He said, I love them. They're my favorite things in the world, but this is going to be my last one. He said, your last one? I said, why? He said, well, he's thinking I'm not going to tell him about kosher or not kosher, things like that. I don't have the money for it. Can't afford it anymore. He's like, you can't afford it? He goes into his pocket, he pulls out a paper that says lifetime supply of Super Dog. He was the owner. He said, I will never let someone come into this store that can't feed it, that can't eat it, that can't pay for it. I'm going to go give it. Now he's looking at this. He says, oh, Hajibah. He said, Washaras, I'm in a very bad situation now. Right? He thought that this is going to be the last one. And now the emunah worked the other way. So he goes to his rabbi. He says, you see, God didn't want me to eat kosher all along. Right? We always try to answer it up. And he says, no. God sees how strong you are. He sees that even with a lifetime supply, you're still going to do it. And he took it and he framed it and he didn't eat it. He never ate it after that. It's up in his... But you see, it works the other way. Sometimes God can give you more than you need, and then you have to worry about how that's going to work. What you're going to use it on. How are you going to survive that way? Now, this is the last thing we're going to see. The Paleo Eitz brings down something written beautifully. He writes, V'yesh nashim haserot mada. There are women who are very smart, or they don't think very much, that they fight with their husbands over money. Vehi shtut gedola, and it's a stupidity, he writes. Mimma nafshach. He says, if the guy is poor and he can't afford anything, then why do you have to hurt him more than he's already hurt? If the guy can't afford something, you have to say, oh, you ingrate, you can't do nothing, you're a loser, you're nothing. You can't afford, I can't buy shoes. He says, what are you putting more pain on the guy when he already has pain? He says, and if the guy, he says, you're just embarrassing him. He says, he says, the woman has to be smart and not put more tzah, not put more pain on the pain that he already has. Rather, she should be the Ezer Kenegah. She should be the nice one, the smart one, saying, you know what? This is what God wants. Console him. Show him that he's trying hard and it's okay and everything's going to be all right with it. And tell him, you know what? Maybe we don't have it here, but we'll have it in the next world. Maybe God's saving for us. We're going to have a big golden table where we could have shiurim, where we could do whatever we want and not give it to us here. Until she's happy and he's happy with what they have. He says, the Pedayot says even more. What if he has the money, he just doesn't want to pay for things? He doesn't want to buy it. She should say, you know what? Does he give me a roof over my head? Does he give me food? Does he give me everything I need? So I don't have the extras, that's also okay. For whatever reason, he doesn't want to do it. Hashem made it that this is how it should be. But you should be happy about that also. And that brings us to the end of the financials. We'll talk about it, Bezat Hashem, a little more if I'm invited back. And we should work on this for now, during Elul, and make it stronger. And the next time we come together, we should figure out different scenarios. There's a lot of scenarios that men and women can get out of issues and fights very easily. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen v'Amen. Thank you.